we're pretty proud of the Delta School, which is actually a proven model that can work. The Delta School started a few years ago with the idea of being a small school with a big footprint, and they took kids that were underperforming the Washington State scores going into high school. They had to have no other prerequisites to go to that school other than they submitted a nomination form, and they were mixed in terms of half girls and boys and low economic statistics and underperforming, and they actually worked through the Delta High School model and outperformed the scores upon their graduation. So it really is a local proven model that says you actually can be involved in the education process with people that have a few strikes against them perhaps, and then actually move them forward so they're ready for a STEM career or STEM education and a STEM career after that.
We got to take a break here, but when we come back, one of the questions that I want to ask the two of you is what you know about Delta. What are they doing there at that high school that is significantly different than others? Back, we're in a great conversation this morning about STEM and getting more children through the pipeline to take the jobs that will be available here in the state of Washington. Good jobs, good paying jobs. My guests are Vicki Bogenberger. She is with CH2M Hills. She's the CFO, Vice President Business Services. Patricia Irving is the President and CEO of InnovaTek Incorporated, a company here in the Tri-Cities. So you are part of a group that is the Washington State STEM Education Foundation, and coming up on Wednesday is a town hall. Patricia, tell us more about this town hall on Wednesday.
Yes, this is going to be held at WSU here in Tri-Cities from 4:30 until 6, and it's an opportunity for women who are in the field of science to talk about their careers and how they got to where they are, and to show young women and girls in the Tri-Cities and their families that these are very important positions that they can work toward, and through the type of education that we're talking about, we're hoping to encourage more and more young ladies to get into this field. So as I said, this is open to anyone in the Tri-Cities. We're hoping to see families present, young women present, to hear more about how they can enter a STEM career. And it's the funding for this has been sponsored by the Women's Alliance and by the State STEM Education Foundation. So it's a town hall meeting, and we encourage everyone to attend.
All right. So, Vicki, why do girls fall off when it comes to this pipeline? Obviously, we do have women that go into STEM careers, because here, two of you are sitting here. And there are a lot more that are engaged out in Hanford-related kinds of jobs. But why? What do we know about that? Why do girls fall off?
I think there's lots of reasons, but one of the statistics has to do with a decision on the average made around the 8th grade time, where girls are making decisions about what are their career steps, and sometimes it's just not seen as cool to be smart in the 8th grade. And so if you're already behind, or you're thinking about being behind, or doing something else, you might take yourself out of the running as a STEM career. You might not necessarily see Patricia or someone else as a STEM career. It might be someone that's in your family that's a guy, so you might not see yourself as that. I think there are plenty of girls going in, but there could be more. And certainly, if we ignore half of the population, half of the student population, which is girls, we are not going to have the workforce that we need for tomorrow. What you're going to see on the panel is Peggy McCullough. She's the head of the Waste Heat Treatment Project, and then also Heather Belts, a recent graduate of WSU Tri-Cities, an intern in environmental engineering, and see the face of and the cool kind of jobs that get to be done by women in STEM. This is part of a town hall event that's going on. Women's Funding Alliance is sponsoring throughout of the state of Washington. So we're very fortunate that they sponsored us to have an event like this here. If you're a supporter of women in STEM, or a woman yourself, or mentoring someone, bring them along, because it is really a chance to see that STEM has a wide variety of faces.
Well, what were your experiences when you were growing up, and what are your backgrounds? It's fascinating that oftentimes folks that are somehow related to something that's Hanford have a STEM background. They're not necessarily a business background, but you're a chemist or biology. What are the two of you?
Well,
Tell us more.
I'd like to point out that there are STEM jobs here in the Tri-Cities well beyond the Hanford
Yes.
activity. In fact, InnovaTek, my company, does nothing associated with Hanford, although we enjoy the infrastructure that exists here in the Tri-Cities that tends to support science and engineering. And I myself, I'm the oldest of 6 children, and the first in the family on both my mother's and father's side to get a college education, as were my 5 brothers and sisters. And I think the thing that made me most interested in going to science was when I was quite young, and I spent some time on my grandparents' dairy farm. We have agriculture is very important here in the Tri-Cities as well, and I saw the importance of how things are linked in our ecology. That getting milk from a cow is one thing, but what it takes to support the ecosystem of a farm just made me so curious about science and trying to understand the interrelationship of organisms and their environment. That's really what got me started. And when I got into college, I think the thing that influenced me the most was an internship that I had. And I was involved in looking at the effects of nuclear power on Lake Michigan. I grew up in Wisconsin. And having the interrelationships of energy production and an ecosystem and the human interactions that occur started getting me realizing that we live in an importantly networked world, and it's very complex, and understanding the relationships is a way to get involved in improving those and making our world more livable in the future. So what InnovaTek does is to develop clean energy technologies. So I continued along that realm. My career at P&L evolved to the point where I started my own company. I founded InnovaTek, and we're continuing to develop advanced technologies for the real world to put energy, to take fossil fuel out of the equation so that we don't have to deal with the climate issues and the other pollution that occurs as a result of fossil fuel combustion, and we can rely on clean energy in the future.
Well, Vicki, I know you told me before you grew up here.
Yeah, I'm a local Tri-City girl, born and raised, and I tell you, my first STEM model was my own mom. When my mom was 22 years old, she found herself in the situation where she had 4 kids under the age of 7, hadn't finished her high school education, didn't know how to drive a car. And so, as you can imagine, our economic circumstances were pretty meager. But that never seemed to daunt her at all. She set about going to school. She first got her GED and then got turned into a secretarial certificate and all. So while we were growing up, it was all about education is your key to your future. And I learned that from her about studying. And so it was always cool to be smart in our family because mom was going to school at night. She got her own STEM degree after all of us have graduated from high school. So that was, I had a good model from the very beginning. I was fortunate enough to go to good schools here and had scholarships available so I could attend Gonzaga University, where I loved business and economics. After that, I was a CPA in public accounting for a while, but I got a chance to come back to Hanford, and then I really got to understand how being a business person with an engineering construction company means you can work on really cool projects that make a difference in the world, and that meant something to me. I've been fortunate enough since I started at Hanford to be on projects across the globe and across the country that are really making a difference in making the world a cleaner and better place to live, and that means something to me. A couple years ago, I got the chance to come back to Hanford and work on one of the biggest cleanup projects in the world in my hometown, and I am proud to be here.
Great to hear. So I know that your Washington State STEM Education Foundation that you are a part of, I'm going to assume that you also do legislative advocacy, that you're talking with our legislators about the need and changes in our education system. Is that fair?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What are the couple of top things that you would like to see the state of Washington do differently as it relates to education?
Well, I think a couple of different things, and it's really probably involvement all the way along the pipeline. First of all, to make sure that early childhood education is there for kids so they're ready to learn in school, and that there is resources available to support STEM learning environments in K through 12, and then also that there are spots available in Washington's universities, STEM spots available for these kids when they're ready to go into, and that there's, and then we all work together to find out that there's educational resources available to support kids that have worked that hard through STEM, the education process to finish it and start their career and actually give back to the Washington state economy that supported them along the way.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it is our economic future here in the state of Washington, and certainly here in the Tri-Cities, where we're focused on a number of projects and businesses that are related to that. What about volunteer opportunities? We have this large group of people here in the Tri-Cities that maybe have retired, and gosh, they're just, how many other communities have such a great audience to talk to in terms of volunteering?
Yes, we have a number of volunteering opportunities available through the work that the foundation is doing, and I can post on your Facebook page some information on how people can find out about volunteering, because we've got a number of opportunities throughout the Tri-Cities. And yes, we have many people. You don't have to be a PhD scientist to be a volunteer and contribute to what's going on here. We're looking for a wide range of people to provide experiences to the students. So highly encourage volunteers. In fact, what I've found as a volunteer myself at Delta High School, that sometimes having an adult personally interested in what you're doing in school, that volunteer is the only person in that kid's life who really is interested in seeing what they're doing in education. And it can mean all the difference in the world to a student like that, who doesn't necessarily have a big network of support at home. So you can make a huge difference in one child's life or in many child's lives by being a volunteer.
Okay, so if people are interested, I want to tell you that it's washingtonstemeducation.org. That's one option. Or just Google Washington State STEM Education. You'll find something. Let me remind you that the town hall is called Women in STEM Town Hall. It's Wednesday, November 18th, 4:30 to 6 at the East Building Auditorium. And that's at the Washington State University Tri-Cities campus out there in Richland. I want to thank the two of you for joining us today, and just let you know that you're representatives of this group, but the rest of us appreciate what you're doing. Keep doing it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.